So as we all know, we gamers love a good boss battle from time to time. Plonk a little challenge in front of us like that and dress it up as a special encounter, and it could be the defining moment of the video game in question. However, we are, as I said, gamers, and we do like the path of least resistance sometimes. So if a boss comes along and showcases a glaring weakness, you best believe that we are going to exploit it. So let's talk about them today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 hard video game bosses with weaknesses you definitely utilized. Number 10, the Fire Giant, Elden Ring. Releasing in early 2022 to a sea of critical praise, Elden Ring is the latest game by From Software, a company that is known for its crushing difficulty, stellar melee combat, and a dedicated fanbase. Now, while other games from the developer have flirted with non-linearity in the past, Elden Ring was the first to embrace it entirely as the game's stunning open world takes center stage. For players, this offers a whole new approach to its difficulty, as there's every chance of a hulking boss encounter around every corner. And one such enemy that players will definitely come across during their time in the lands between is the Fire Giant, one of the game's essential bosses to overcome if players want to see the credits roll. However, this doesn't mean that he can't be bested with some careful planning and well-timed execution. Now, you see, the key to making this fight easier is to lure the Fire Giant from his dwelling place to a nearby ledge. He will then brainlessly leap down from the top and deal enough damage to himself to trigger the fight's second phase. Now, Elden Ring is such a punishing game that cheesing this fight feels like a small but rather significant victory over it, because trust me, it's taken a lot from me. Number 9, Dark Link, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Now, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link is not an easy game. The 2D side-scrolling gameplay is a challenge to get used to, as it was clear that the now revered franchise went through significant growing pains before it hit its stride on the Super Nintendo with A Link to the Past. And the part of the game that makes this most apparent is during the boss battle with Dark Link. After suddenly appearing from nowhere, the fight ensues. However, as it's on a 2D plane, it suffers from the same game-breaking issues that the likes of Mortal Kombat did. You see, if you just scroll to one side and crouch, well, it offers maximum protection against all attacks, meaning that all the player has to do in this state is land a few hits on his kneecaps before the boss goes down. Now, fighting Dark Link normally feels cheap as he just reflects most of your attacks, but here, well, it feels cheap but in a completely different manner, as now you are the one dishing out that fromage, my friend. Number 8, Metal Man, Mega Man 2. Mega Man 2 is one of the finest 2D platformers, and say it with me, kids, of all time! Of the 8 enemies at the end of their respective level, there are a handful that offer a real challenge, and Metal Man is definitely one of them. But when players find him once again in Wily's castle, the encounter can be significantly shortened. In all 6 of the NES classic Mega Man games, when a boss is slain, Mega Man receives their weapon. From Cutman's rolling cutters to Pharaoh shot granted when beating Pharaoh Man, they all serve to make traversing through the later levels easier. And enemies also have specific weaknesses, and Metal Man's is the simplest of all. In Wily's castle, Metal Man will once again rear his ugly head, but with just 2 hits from the metal blades, well, it will see him fall apart. That's right, he's weak to his own weapon. Number 7, The Warrior, Borderlands 2. The battle here is really just a case of having plenty of bullets and enough willpower to muscle your way through, as the final boss fight with the Warrior doesn't really allow much room for creativity, or so you might think. While there is a spare barrier protecting the player from the final arena in which the fight takes place, there's also a smattering of boulders to the left-hand side before you enter that can be climbed on for a suitable vantage point. From there, it's a straight shot to the enemy's weak spot, and with some patience, the once feared foe will fall without you taking a single point of damage. It's a shame to end the game in such a cheap way, but then again, as most of the fun is collecting the guns and oogling at them rather than actually pulling the trigger, it is a welcome trick. Number 6, Silver LYNELS, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Perhaps the most feared entity in all of Hyrule are the LYNELS that are dotted around the landscape, but one in particular is extra fierce. In the ruins of the Colosseum near the Great Plateau is a silver LYNEL that lies in wait for anyone brave enough to take it on. Fights with LYNELS are usually a desperate battle that's full of big swings and near misses, but if players take advantage of one small feature, they will become far easier to beat. One well-timed ancient arrow will make the enemy vanish into thin air, allowing the player to continue on their quest to defeat Ganon in Hyrule Castle. It's a weakness that doesn't offer any kind of reward, but will make the journey far simpler, as the game's most significant enemy can just be wiped from existence. Of course, this takes much of the fun out of the task, but then again, it is a rather significant weakness nonetheless. Number 5. The Reaper, Persona 5. Persona 5 is a game that improved upon its predecessor in so many ways, but also knew what to take from the likes of Persona 3 and Persona 4 Golden to make it great. And no clearer can these factors be experienced than when fighting the Reaper in the depths of Grinder's Paradise known as Mementos. The Reaper can be found in the second area of this seemingly endless dungeon and onwards, and like other titles in which he appears, the fight is near impossible without the appropriate strategy and a lot of luck. Well, that is unless players encounter the entity during flu season. The season has a huge effect on the shadows that inhabit Mementos, and the Reaper is no exception. Should he be inflicted by despair, it will take just 3 turns from the player before he falls down dead. Number 4. NATTAK, Final Fantasy VII. From the Scorpion Sentinel that gave players a challenge in the very early stages to the final confrontation with Sephiroth, encounters with the game's toughest enemies often go down to the wire, and players leave feeling incredibly accomplished when, or indeed if, they are victorious. However, there's one fight that can be almost skipped entirely just before the game's halfway point. After arriving at Cosmo Canyon, players can find an X potion, which is a huge giveaway for the next boss's main weakness. Now, NATTAK is a hulking enemy who is a spirit that has inhabited the area after Red 13's father fought off his tribe. He's a ghostly figure, so naturally due to his undead nature, when the fight begins, it's a suitable strategy to attack him with life. A Phoenix Down, elixir, or even the X potion you just picked up earlier will do the trick, sending the enemy to yet another grave. Number 3. Quiet, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. One of the many compelling personalities dreamed up by Hideo Kojima, Quiet is introduced to the player in the opening scene of the game, although we don't yet know it. She later appears and is recruited to serve as one of Big Boss's 4 companions, but not before she puts up a fight. Outwitting Quiet is definitely a lot of fun, and there's lots of flashbacks to the end in Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater in this fight, but it can also be overcome with a simple yet innovative gameplay quirk. After marking her across the map, simply request 2 supply drops to her location and they'll bonk the deadly assassin on the head, ending the fight entirely. It's a trick that makes this tough encounter far easier, but in doing so kind of robs the player of the satisfaction of knowing that they didn't actually outwit her properly. Number 2. Mummy Men, Castlevania. Castlevania is crushing, especially if you don't know what you're doing, so naturally there's a lot of its audience that look for easier ways to advance through its 6 levels, each of which end with a challenging fight against the character from vampire lore. Now, the Mummy Men are the big old baddie of level 3 and pose a significant threat if the player is ill-equipped. However, if you've got holy water at your disposal, it can be made a lot easier by simply walking to the center of the room to trigger the fight and then jumping back out before laying waste to all of it with the holy water. The bosses just simply can't reach you, and so it makes the fight incredibly one-sided. And number 1, Incubus, Silent Hill. It is a game that's known for its great characters and eerie atmosphere, and while the bosses are enjoyable and suitably scary, they're not really the whole point of the experience. Like in many games, upon arriving at the end, there is a huge foe that must be overcome, and here its name is Incubus. And it definitely looks pretty threatening, especially in comparison to protagonist Harry Mason's ordinary aura. But it doesn't have to be a challenging fight though, as Incubus has a rather fatal flaw that Konami included for players who weren't careful with their ammunition. Now, arriving at this encounter with 0 bullets would seem like the worst idea imaginable, right? But here there's actually a cheeky trick for players to get the upper hand. You see, all you need to do is just run around for a bit, and after a while the boss will simply die, just giving up, allowing even the most wasteful of players the chance to see this game's ending. What a way to go, right? And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 hard video game bosses with weaknesses you utilized. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, same for Instagram as well. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself with love, because you deserve all of the best things in life, and don't let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, alright? You are a massive ledge, and I want you to go out there and utterly smash it today. I believe in you. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.